Now we might be in the middle of winter, but one thing certain to lift your spirits is new irons from Mizuno, and there's 3 new models to choose from within the new Mizuno Pro range: 221, the 223 and the 225, all on sale from February 3rd in 2022. And as you can see, I've got a half set of each of these models to give them a thorough test here on the golf course at Burnley Park Golf Club. We've got the 17th hole all to ourselves to discover exactly how these irons perform, which one might be right for you, and whether an upgrade is worth the money. So first up we have the Mizuno Pro 221. This is the muscle back design, grain flow forged. It's actually the iron that Justin Rose put in play at the Open back in the summer. So clearly an iron designed for the better player, the tour player. And I've got both the irons here, the new 221 and the old outgoing MP20 blade style design. And there's a very subtle difference. Generally they look quite similar, but you will notice that in the new Mizuno Pro, I feel like this pad behind the hitting area is slightly taller, and you can see there is a section taken away in the heel. That's a deliberate ploy from Mizuno to give you a better feel behind the ball at impact. The new Mizuno Pro 221 compared to the old MP20 blade has a slightly smaller head, but the actual hitting area, I would say, is actually a little bit longer. So it still doesn't inspire a massive amount of confidence. It's relatively intimidating. It is designed for the very competent golfer, but you know, I have tested this iron. We went to Girton Golf Club, excellent facility there, to get some launch monitor data with the Foresight Sports GC Quad using Titleist Pro X golf balls. I'll flash it up on your screen now. I would say my speeds are a little bit down from where I used to be. Have been having a bit of a hiatus from testing. So if you're comparing this review to old reviews, that might be why the numbers are slightly different, but you'll see that actually from the data, the performance was very similar between these two clubs. But the 221 did go slightly further and did offer me slightly less spin. What I would say is that possibly is a lot down to the shaft I'm testing. So this is the new Project X LS shaft, LS standing for low spin. From testing I've done with the Ping I-59s as well, does knock off a good few hundred RPMs of spin. Testing against this one, it was around about 250 RPMs of spin. But we're going to hit a shot for you now with this new Mizuno Pro 221. I think the feel is definitely one thing that stands out for me. It's a much, compared to the MP20, I think this is a better feeling club. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit softer, a little bit more dense. I feel like the ball stays on the face for a little bit longer, but I actually feel like this head is a bit more solid. It actually has a tiny bit more spring to it, and that's a combination I really like. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a very forgiving golf club. On a day like this when it's freezing cold, you are worried about thinning one. Off centre, you do see big drop-offs in performance, but if you're looking for the ultimate in workability, in feel, a nice low flight, lots of spin, it's a combination I really like when hitting into greens. This is the club that's going to work for you. It looks absolutely fantastic, both in the bag, down behind the ball. Not going to give you much help, but if you're a good ball striker, could be the way to go. So next in the range we have the Mizuno Pro 223. This is the Elite Players cavity back, slightly stronger in loft, 32 degrees versus the 34 in the blade. And this iron has a little bit more technology built into it to give you a little bit more assistance, both in terms of that launch and also forgiveness as well. What you'll find behind the face is there's a slot here to give you a little bit more spring off the face. This iron also uses chromoly, so within the forging process it essentially makes the metal a bit stronger, which allows Mizuno to go slightly thinner on the face. So this is essentially a shrunken down version of the JPX 921 forge, but it's also going to give you a little bit more speed off the face. So it's a nice combination, I think, for the better player who likes to look down on a compact looking club but wants a little bit more speed and a little bit more distance. So, you know, down behind the ball, you know, it is still a really compact iron. It's still an iron clearly designed for the low handicapper, but just gives you a little bit more meat behind the ball versus the 221, which I've got here. So flash up the launch monitor data on your screen now. You'll notice this iron, again, similar to the 221, did give me a little bit more ball speed, a little bit more lower spin versus the outgoing MP20 MMC. And I think I definitely noticed the smaller size with this club versus the MMC. And In the MP20 range last year, the MMC was my favourite club of the three, and I think this is probably going to be similar because it does tick a lot of boxes for a low handicapper like myself. It's nice and compact behind the ball, but it gives you a little bit more assistance. I'll hit one for you now, so you can kind of hear what it feels like. See, it still feels really, really soft. And even though it's stronger in loft, like the ball flight would suggest, it's quite similar. If anything, it goes slightly higher than the 221. So it's a nice combination, I think, for golfers that want a little bit more help, a little bit more distance. You see from the numbers, I was carrying a little bit further than the 221, but it's still giving you feel, it's still giving you workability, and it's still giving you that really crisp turf interaction as well. So potentially the best of the three for the better player. And last but by no means least, we have the Mizuno Pro 225. This replaces the MP20 HMB, which for me was the most disappointing iron of the three when we saw the previous range. So I was interested to see how this iron compared to that particular model. Testing on the launch monitor got some interesting results, but first just want to talk about the way this iron looks and how it's been designed. So it does have a slightly thinner face than the old model, which should give you a little bit more speed. It's also a trend we've seen throughout the range is that this iron has been made slightly more compact, again to appeal to the slightly better player, but it is really a compact distance iron. It's lofted at 30 degrees, this 7-iron, so it's clearly designed for speed. It's a hollow head, HMB standing for hot metal blade, so it looks like a blade, but it plays a bit more like a distance iron. There's tungsten weighting inside the header to give you a bit more forgiveness, but it's still down behind the ball. You know, you would look at it and think, well, that is an iron designed for, you know, the better player. It looks quite similar to my current TaylorMade P770 in terms of the profile and the thickness of the top line and things like that. But definitely, Lord, I'll hit one now just to give you a demo of how this one kind of flies and feels. That feels really, really hot off the face, and a kind of trend we saw going through the range. Actually, even though the lofts are getting stronger, the ball flight, if anything, is getting higher. I'll flash up the launch monitor data, and we got testing this club indoors. You'll see actually got the biggest increase in distance with this club versus compared to the outgoing range versus the other two models in the range. So I think while Mizuno are making a lot of shouting about the 223, I think the 225 is arguably the biggest improvement. It feels hotter off the face, gives me a big jump in distance, slightly lower spin. I'd say that while the height was pretty good, the data on the launch monitor suggested the descent angle into greens might be a little bit shallow, but I think for golfers who want more distance, this is clearly delivering that in a package that looks absolutely fantastic. It looks like a blade, looks great in the bag, but it's going to give you a lot of help on those off-centre hits. So potentially, you know, low to mid-handicapper wanting to play a Mizuno club with that signature Mizuno feel without losing out on distance and forgiveness, you're going to get it with this Mizuno Pro 225. So there you have it. Hopefully that's given you a good flavour as to what the Mizuno Pro irons are all about. The 221, the 223 and the 225, I would say, represents an evolution, not a revolution. It's a very kind of minor tweaking and refining of what we saw with the MP20, and I think if you've got a set of MP20s, don't really think you need to be rushing to upgrade to these irons. But that said, if you're a better player who hasn't upgraded your irons for a while, I think you're really going to enjoy what these Mizuno Pro irons offer. The 221, as I mentioned earlier, the ultimate in feel and workability. It's the less expensive of the three as well, which could be an appealing prospect, but I do think, you know, compared to a lot of compact cavity backs out there, you are going to be losing distance versus those, but you do get a slightly better feel. And this iron, I think, has improved in terms of how it feels at impact. Gives you a little bit more spring off the face versus the old model. The 223, I think, is an excellent all-rounder. Feels hot off the face, but still nice and soft. It's a really pleasing combination. It's a little bit more expensive than the blade, but I think there's a lot to enjoy about this club. Again, doesn't move it on a great deal from the MP20 MMC, but in terms of offering that combination of distance and feel, it's an excellent choice. And then the Mizuno Pro 225 is arguably the iron I was most impressed with. I think it's moved on more than the others. It feels really, really hot off the face, looks fantastic in the bag, and just gives you a nice combination of speed, distance, and forgiveness as well. So it is the most expensive, £200 a club for the 225. That's a lot of money, but you know, this is if you haven't upgraded for a while, you know, iron sets, you know, £200 a club in the grand scheme of things is actually relatively normal these days, and I think you'll be really, really impressed with what that offers if you want a bit more help with your iron shots. So there you have it, the Mizuno Pro range, 3 models, all excellent offerings depending on what you're after. I think there is a nice progression through the set, and also probably less need to mix and match models within the set. So I think if you're suited to one model, you can probably go with that iron from 4 iron all the way up to picture wedge. There's less need, I think, to mix and match models through the set. So hopefully that's given you a good idea as to what these irons are all about. Do click subscribe to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel if you like our videos and you want to see more equipment review videos. Click the like button if you like what you're watching. But that's all from me, Burnley Park Golf Club here in Stamford. I'll see you next time.